Okay, so welcome back, everyone. Good to be here with Bonnie Tsai. Thank you, Bonnie, for inviting or accepting our invitation. Bonnie Tsai is a teacher and teacher trainer, and she works for Pilgrims in Canterbury. Am I correct?
That's right.
And she now trains teachers on courses by Pilgrims, and she misses teaching a lot. You've just told me. But we're going to come back to that later. So we've just come from your plenary session, which is basically about falling in love with teaching again, in brackets. So could you please briefly tell our viewers about your plenary? What were the main points that you'd like to mention?
Well, the premise was, which I took from the theme of this conference, is that there are lots of teachers who just get tired and burnt out, and the joy and the success they felt at the beginning has kind of died out. So it was basically looking at 4 areas in which teachers could bring back their love of teaching. And I talked about things like how to use material, about the atmosphere in the room, the layout of the room, about pacing a lesson, what you're expecting students to be able to do, and finally different ways of giving feedback, and both non-verbally and verbal feedback. So that was basically it.
Okay, there was one picture in particular which kind of remained in my mind. Is the first slide, which shows a forest and a path. And there was a quotation or sentence above the picture saying that teaching is like going through a path, going through a forest. Could you tell us more about that?
Well, I use metaphor a lot. So for me, this was a metaphor of the journey a teacher makes. And it can be actually a journey of one lesson, it can be a journey of a year, it can be a journey of a lifetime. And it's like a walk through the forest in that it's not straight. There are curvy parts. There are things that you might stumble, like roots of trees. You might have to make decisions about which way to go. You might reach a dead end and you have to turn around. So it's just about how teaching for me can be like walking through a forest.
And isn't it scary? Isn't it scary to go through a forest? You never know where you're going to end up. So is there any control of the teacher over the situation?
I think the teacher has the control of making decisions. A forest may have lighter parts that she decides to go through, but it may also have darker parts. There may be paths that are more unknown and require a bit of risk-taking, and there may be more direct, safer paths. So I think there's a lot of choice that a teacher has. But yeah, I think if you're a conscientious teacher, there are scary moments when you question yourself and what you're doing and how effective you are. Definitely, yeah.
And which one are you? I mean, are you the one who looks for challenges and goes into the dark parts of the woods, or which path have you chosen so far?
Oh, I'm the risk taker. I'm the dark part of the forest. I don't work very well under routine. I like to work with my students as people. I like to create material with them. I like to use them as a resource. And it's true, sometimes I'm not sure where it's gonna, I'm not always sure where it's gonna lead. I trust them. You know, Walt Disney had this technique he used before he would release one of his films. He would go into a dark theater and he'd just sit with nothing. And he'd just visualize, imagine the film as someone in the audience. What would they be seeing? What would they be hearing? And I think, you know, that's a tool or technique that I use often is if I can get some kind of picture of what students will be doing or how they'll react, then I'll do it, even though it's a bit risky. If I can't get that picture, then I don't do it.
That's very interesting. So you kind of visualize the stage where you want to get to, or what you want to reach with your students?
And how the students are going to be in that. How comfortable are they going to be?
Mm-hmm. And you haven't done a lot of teaching in the last 2 years, you said.
No.
And you really miss that.
Well, I think that it can be dangerous for a teacher trainer to stop teaching, because I think it's very easy to get out of touch with reality and to know what a classroom is really like. Actually, a couple weeks ago, I did a CELTA Young Learners Extension in Catania, and because we had a small number of participants, my colleague and I, we actually taught 2 lessons, 2 hours. And it was really interesting for me to see what was it like to really work with these were kids 10, 11, 12 years old, but much more mature than we imagine sometimes kids of that age.
And it might be a very good chance for you to step back, as Margit Szestai said, and reflect on yourself as a teacher, because you kind of gain distance by stopping teaching for a while. What kind of plans do you have for the future? Because now you train teachers, and what's going to happen next? Any plans?
Yeah, well, one of my big passions is art and museums, and how we can bring museums more into education. And so the museum comes to the school, but the school also goes to the museum. And this is really something that I'm really passionate about. I'm very lucky because I do a lot of my work in Canterbury, and we have a great museum in Margate, which is very near. But we also have the Beanie, which is just opened or reopened in Canterbury, which is it's a really interactive museum for people who want to learn, so they can really explore and touch and make and create.
Wow.
So this is something that I'm really interested in and want to do more and more work with.
And if anyone is interested in this, finding out more about your project or learning English through museums and teaching through museums, where can they find information on this? Or
the Harvard Graduate School of Education does actually online courses. They run for about 4 months a semester, and you actually get a certificate from Harvard saying you've done this. And they have a lot of courses around this idea of using art, and how you can integrate art into your class, and how you can also use museums, because museums have the most incredible educational departments. If you just take the time to explore, to visit, to find out, they really are doing great work.
Sounds very interesting. I think it's a very good plenary topic for next year, maybe, or any other conferences. Just 1 or 2 more questions. How do you feel about this conference as a participant, let's say? Have you seen Eger, for example?
I arrived quite late last night, so I've seen 2 plenaries. Unfortunately, I haven't been to a workshop yet, because actually I have 3 things on today myself. I think the thing that has been the most precious for me is coming in contact with teachers that I had in courses at Pilgrims, who, so meeting people from the past, the distant past, and also the recent past, and getting into contact with them again. That's been fabulous for me.
Wow. And last question, which sessions are you going to go to today or tomorrow? Are you staying on Sunday as well?
Yes, I am. I'm staying to the end on Sunday, and I have a workshop this afternoon in about an hour. I have a workshop this afternoon, which is a follow-up of my plenary, but it's more on self-esteem. And I hope that I get to go to at least 1 workshop before I leave.
And go to restaurants or a wine cellar.
And go to a wine cellar and sing tonight to some karaoke.
Yeah, karaoke nights, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we share your materials, your PPT, anything that you've used? Because
Sure.
we would put them on the blog,
Sure.
the Eger
No
Online,
problem.
egeronline.wordpress.com.
No problem.
And people can also watch this interview later on YouTube.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
Thank you, Bonnie, for coming, and it was lovely meeting you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.